This audio fiction may contain elements not suitable for children. Listener discretion is advised.
The group of adventurers have set out at first light that day in hopes of covering as much ground as possible. Otherwise, they may be stranded in the forest at the mercy of the elements and the nearby wildlife. In the midst of autumn, that is hardly a desirable circumstance. The group hopes to encounter a town that had been marked on a map they had recently procured.
I do believe this map is outdated.
Lucas looks down at the map once more.
Otherwise, its measurements are off, and the distances are merely an estimate and not precise.
So we may be forced to camp. But it's so cold now.
We can make that work without any issues. We have before.
Doesn't make it any warmer.
We'll have a fire and plenty of blankets, Aeson. You'll be fine.
But that's not now.
There is a town indicated on the map. We'll be approaching it soon, even if that map is estimated measurements.
See, Aeson? Fine.
I will be later. It's still cold now without the sun over us.
Lucas looks up from the map once more.
Is that...
A building! Yes!
The high elf rushes off towards the distant edifice.
He'd better hope that whoever owns that building is friendly about letting us in for the night.
Well, he's happy for the moment. We will find out soon enough.
Yes, and I am certain somebody will be willing to put us up for the night in exchange for money.
Aeson stops at the door to the building. He looks around and realizes they had happened upon a small town. He decides which building looks most like a tavern, then approaches it instead. Lucas, Nila, and Branan step into the town a short while later. The three of them look around at the various close-by buildings. There are several storefronts, faded signs that indicate businesses, and a large building that appears to have been a tavern at some point in the past. Aeson wipes dust and dirt from the window of the tavern. He squints to see through the near darkness and layers of dust on the inside of the tavern.
There doesn't appear to be anyone here.
It is possible travelers don't happen upon here often. The tavern may not have done well and is simply no longer used.
Agreeing with Branan, Lucas approaches one of the other buildings. He wipes away dust on the window, then looks inside for signs of people. He finds more dust and unused furniture and tools on tables in the apparently abandoned buildings. Nila does the same with yet another building. As with the others, the buildings show no signs of life within, only dust and cobwebs. The cleric of Mera frowns as she moves back towards the presumed tavern.
It looks like the entire town's been abandoned.
Is anybody here?
Branan looks to Aeson.
Somehow, I don't think anybody will answer.
Branan approaches another building. He gazes through the window, then turns towards his friends.
This entire town is abandoned.
And it's almost sundown.
We could still stay in one of the buildings for the night. Press onward in the morning.
That's likely for the best. Maybe one of the buildings has some beds that are still in usable shape, so we can have a little extra comfort.
We can look. The tavern is most likely to have beds.
Aeson approaches the tavern once more. When the door doesn't open, he produces a lockpick. After a moment of working on the lock, Aeson pushes the door to the tavern open.
Who locks up before they abandon a building? Let alone a whole town.
That's a good question, though one we really won't be able to answer.
Aeson gingerly steps into the building.
We might as well see if there's anywhere we can sleep.
The small group sleeps in a large room with multiple beds. Daylight has disappeared, and the four of them were looking forward to continuing towards a populated town at first light. Each of the four slept soundly. Aeson rolls over and pulls the blanket up to his shoulders. A distant sound makes the high elf sit upright. Aeson looks around the room. Branan lies asleep nearby. His spectacles sit on the window pane beside him. Branan's right hand is tucked beneath his pillow. Lucas sleeps above the blanket on his bed. Lucas is sprawled out and slumbering peacefully. Nila is asleep on her own bed, curled up and wrapped in her blanket. After realizing that none of his companions are up, Aeson slides out of bed.
Bron, get up.
Aeson grabs his whip from his bag. He walks to Branan's bed and sits on the edge.
Bron, wake up. Somebody else is on this floor with us. You have to get up, Bron.
Branan, now barely roused from sleep, tries to orient himself.
Aeson, go to sleep. If you're cold, there's my blankets in the closet.
You please, wake up!
Aeson, will you please go back to bed?
Aeson, sleep. Nightmares go away.
This one won't! Somebody's here!
Branan pulls his dagger out from beneath his pillow.
All right, fine. If it's somebody dangerous, I'm prepared.
Branan begins rummaging around his possessions for better attire than he was wearing, should they have to fight their visitor. Nila likewise begins dressing herself in her traveling clothing.
Oh, thank you for getting up.
Lucas rolls out of bed and slowly crosses the room to the door.
The sooner we see who this is, the sooner we get back to sleep.
Right. Hopefully it's just the owner. We can talk to him about his poor housekeeping then.
Lucas opens the door. His friends await his reaction to their visitor.
Hello. If you are the owner, we apologize. My friends and I, we needed a place to bunk for the night. If you could wait until morning, we can arrange payment for the room.
The woman, dressed in unwashed and tattered clothing, remains still.
Miss? Hello?
Is she sleepwalking?
I don't know. It's too dark to tell. If one of you could bring me a light...
Or you could conjure one.
Oh, right.
Lucas conjures a flame. He holds the light toward the woman.
Is that blood on her dress?
Lucas angles the flame to allow a better look at the woman's attire. Branan moves his fingers rhythmically. The source of red on the woman's dress is pulled toward Branan.
It's dry, but it's blood.
Nila frowns and takes several protective steps closer to Lucas.
Ma'am, are you all right? Did something happen?
She is unresponsive. Do you think she was injured?
Lucas lifts the woman's chin. He quickly withdraws his hand.
What happened?
She's freezing!
Luke, get away from her!
Nila jumps forward to get between Lucas and the woman.
Life, death, and rebirth as you wish it to be!
Nila conjures an orb of holy light and thrusts it toward the woman. Lucas distances himself from the visitor. He watches awestruck as the woman is hit by the Mare-blessed attack. The undead woman falls to the ground and shrieks in terror and pain. Quickly, the woman's body becomes a small pile of ashes.
She was a vampire.
Some manner of undead.
Whatever she was, I think we've figured out why the town's been abandoned. Either she killed them all, or she chased them away.
Lucas shuts the door.
So, should we go then?
There may be more where she came from, right? Vampires usually have company they've made.
Branan turns to Nila. She nods in confirmation.
It's rare for them to be alone. So either we leave now and hope we don't attract any more attention, or we try to barricade the room so that we have somewhere safe to stay until morning.
I vote for the choice that gets us more sleep.
That seems best to me. We barricade the door. Enough things moving from them trying to get through the door will wake us. We fight them off if we have to.
Nila, what do you want to do?
Aeson does have a point about sleep. We're all tired, and I wouldn't want to wind up surrounded while we're trying to get away. Or, just as badly, wind up being chased all night.
Well, let's start barricading the door then.
The others quickly move toward the heavy furniture in the room. The door to the room is barricaded with the dresser, desk, and several chairs. Luck gave them a door that opened into the room, making the barricade easier to build. The four lay then in bed, attempting to catch up on their sleep. Aeson rolls over in his sleep. He's exhausted, and had been the one that heard the vampire enter the building. He's afraid to fall asleep given the possible consequences should that vampire have not been alone. Every noise from the wind in the trees to his friends tossing in their sleep pulls him from a slumber. He immediately calms himself again when the noise that disrupted his sleep stops. This happens several times, until the high elf decides he was going to drive himself mad reacting to every sound in the vicinity. When he lets go of the apprehension, Aeson falls into a peaceful slumber. The sound of wooden furniture inching across the wooden floor is subtle. The turning of the doorknob a moment before is almost silent. Lucas sat upright. He stretches, and looks toward the door. The situation registers with him a moment after. He watches the door and the furniture against it. He's not certain he's seeing anything. The furniture couldn't have been moving after all. Lucas hurries to his feet.
Everybody get up! We have more of them!
Nila sits upright almost immediately. She scrambles from her bed and moves towards the door.
Oh, no, you don't! Life, death, and rebirth as you wish it to be!
An orb of holy light forms in Nila's hand. She holds it in preparation for the moment she sees an opportunity to throw it at another vampire. Branan quickly gets himself up and ready with a weapon. Aeson pushes himself upright.
What's going on? Please don't be morning.
More vampires!
Never mind. Please be morning?
The door is forced open more. Several gaunt figures shamble through. Nila, still holding an orb of holy light, draws her weapon.
I don't think I like the looks of this.
Perhaps it was a small nest. And these ones are hungry or were looking for their missing companion.
We can hope.
The vampires each lunge in different directions. Aeson leaps away from the vampire that had targeted him. He flicks his wrist. The popper of his whip bites into the vampire's flesh. Nila throws her magical attack towards the vampire that threatens the rogue. Aeson sighs and relaxes.
Whew.
The vampire that had turned toward him quickly turns to ash. Branan cuts his palm. He sends several shards of blood toward his assailant. The undead creature flinches in pain. When the vampire is close enough, Branan thrusts his dagger into the creature's heart. Branan watches, relieved, when the creature slowly turns to ash as the others had. Lucas falls to the ground from the force of the vampire's tackle. As the creature lunges at his throat, he throws up his arm defensively. Lucas cries out in pain when the vampire bites his arm. Nila's eyes grow wide in terror.
Luke!
While his friends are reacting in horror to him being bitten, more vampires push their way into the room.
Behind you!
Despite her worry, Nila turns toward the door.
Life, death, and rebirth as you wish it to be!
Nila summons a wave of holy light, unleashing it at the vampires trying to enter the room. Her growing exhaustion renders the spell too weak to fully destroy the vampires, but does succeed in driving them away for the time. Lucas holds up his free hand toward the attacker.
Life, death, and rebirth as you wish it to.
Before Lucas could finish the incantation, the vampire releases its grip on him. The undead being lets out a loud shriek and begins twitching and panicking.
Oh, God!
I don't think it's scared. Is it hurt?
It sounds hurt.
How did we hurt it? Luke didn't even finish saying that spell.
I didn't. I have no idea what I did.
The vampire's body then sublimates into ash, dust, and smoke.
Did you?
Nila shakes her head.
I didn't do anything.
Then what just happened?
A silence falls among the four of them.
Now, what is going on here?
The god of fears takes form on the mortal plane. He looks around at the mortals present and the undead creatures.
Even now you are worried, but not fearful.
What just happened to it?
You didn't know that you could do that, Luke?
No. I cannot say I have ever been bitten by an undead creature before tonight.
Which is good, but hardly answers the question of what happened.
Fascinating.
Branan looks around the room. He stops when he finds his patron god in the corner of the room.
Lord Barbas?
The others turn around to find the god of fears before them.
That's him, all right.
You're certain?
Unless Braun has more than one god who buys him tea. Yeah.
Oh, yes. The tea I gave you after you played with my Rougarou. I do hope you've enjoyed it.
It was delicious.
Good.
Played with.
Rougarou?
That creature you found in the tunnels. She is my pet. She got to play with you and quite enjoyed that time.
Lord Barbas, why are you here? Did I summon you somehow?
Oh, no. I was just curious what was causing so much fear here, and happened upon you.
The four of us alone were scared enough to pique the interest of the god of fear himself?
No, just 3 of you. The 4th was worried, but There is no god of worry to join me.
The one that wasn't afraid was Bronn, wasn't it?
Oh, it was. Yes.
Don't you find it strange that one of your clerics isn't afraid of anything? Wouldn't you want them to, I don't know, embody your domain or something?
No. He does exactly what he is supposed to do. Few gods want their clerics to be a certain way only. That becomes quite boring to watch.
Lucas pushes himself to his feet.
Barbas? His patron god?
Lucas motions to Branan.
Would you know what happened to that vampire? The one who bit me?
Oh. One got a taste of holy blood. That certainly explains a few things.
Holy blood?
The Blood Witch turned away from his patron god. He looks at his friend's wounded arm.
Being consecrated runs in families. Does that mean it runs in the blood? Literally?
You think there's something different about Luke's blood?
Branan turns to question Barbas. He finds the corner where the fear god had stood empty once more.
Given Lord Barbas' absence, I would guess so. Gods hardly like conversation where they give us all the answers.
So Luke's blood will kill them, is what we're assuming. Is there a way to use that to our benefit? I don't like the idea of letting them all bite him.
Neither do I.
All the more reason for me to bottle your blood a little at a time.
As creepy as it is, Bronn does have a point. We might want to start that.
That's a conversation to have when we aren't in the middle of a town with an unknown number of vampires that want to eat us.
That would be a wise decision, my children.
Nila turns to face the source of the new voice. Her face becomes ashen for just a moment before Nila kneels in deference.
Mara!
How do you know that's Mayra?
Sometimes you can just feel it. You can sense which god has appeared before you.
Mara's here now? Did you come to watch, Lady Mara? Barbas was just here doing the same, so...
Oh, he was? How pleasant for you, dear Branan, that your patron deity would visit you in such a dangerous time.
Dangerous, my goddess?
Oh, yes. Surely you have noticed that this town has become quite a large vampire nest, have you not?
One bit me. It died soon after. Am I going to become one?
Oh, of course not. Your blood is divine, after all. You are quite immune to vampirism.
That means there must be differences between those with the direct parentage of a god, too.
Could you not be so happy? We were just told by the goddess of life and death that we are in a nest of vampires? A large one at that.
You are, and it would be wise of you to leave as soon as you can.
But we're exhausted. We'd stand no chance at survival if these vampires caught us while we were trying to escape.
We could stay here. We know the dangers now. We could stay up for a few hours, sleep for a bit, then leave.
We'd have to fight off the vampires until daylight.
Actually, that wouldn't be too difficult. They've been coming in small groups. Even if there were thousands of vampires here, we've been able to kill a few at a time.
Either that, or I have to start draining your blood so we can pour it in front of the door to the room we're occupying.
I am not really keen on that idea.
That would be a bad idea anyway. Because then, come morning, we'd have to help Luke, who would be exhausted both from the lack of sleep and having much of his blood drained. We would be better served if Luke and I tried to bless our door or something, if we wanted to ward the vampires off.
Regardless of what you elect to do, I do believe that it would be best if I offered you a small gift of sorts. You all have weaponry with you, yes?
Of course we do.
Lucas retrieves his sword. Branan lifts his dagger. Aeson holds up his whip. Nila holds up her sword as well.
Excellent! It would not do well if Lucas and Nila exhausted themselves with magic every time a vampire entered the room. So...
The goddess smiles and steps towards each of the four mortals. She places her hand upon each of their weapons as she passes by them.
A little gift. My blessing for your weapons. It will run its course in approximately 2 days, so it will provide you ample time to not only escape this town, but to get far away from it. In the meantime, even Aeson's whip will prove exceptionally effective against the undead.
Nila stares in wide-eyed awe at Mara for a moment, then shifts her gaze slowly to her sword.
You honor us with your blessing, my goddess.
Oh no, I simply do not wish to see any of my children come to undue harm as a result of these blasphemous creatures.
Getting out of here in the next few hours sounds like the best idea. Even with this blessing, no good will come of us trying to fight when we've had little restful sleep or food.
Agreed. We should probably add to the barricade if we're staying until daylight, though. Even as small as these were, they did manage to push the door open.
Aeson looks down at his whip.
Huh. This will be able to kill something?
Inasmuch as you can kill the undead. Regardless, now that we are somewhat better equipped to handle our situation, I must once more offer my...
Nila turns to look for Mara, and sees that the goddess has disappeared as suddenly as she had arrived.
thanks. Or I suppose that she's already gone.
How do we thank her? Light a bunch of candles? Say that spell Nila uses to call her?
No, that is really, we can thank Mara later.
Yes. For now, though, let's put a bed in the way so vampires have to work that much more to intrude.
Right. We might also want to consider trying to get a little sleep in shifts until we get proper rest in the morning.
Nila and Branan remain awake for the first 3 hours. None of them carried a timepiece to indicate the hours until daylight, so 6 hours to go had been an estimation. Lucas and Aeson were asleep within moments of being assured the other two would remain awake with ease. Rain picks up in the midst of the night. The constant downpour and the wind blowing made the pair jumpy. Each time the building creaks, their eyes settle on the door. They wait, with weapons held tightly. Then, nothing would happen. On occasion, they nudge the other awake, or keep themselves preoccupied with conversation. Their speaking stops as soon as any non-voice sound catches their attention. Since their timekeeping is an estimation, when Nila and Branan could no longer keep themselves awake for a steady amount of time, they woke their companions. Aeson and Lucas sit on the bed nearest to the door. The sounds of the building creaking instilled nerves that reacted quickly. They keep their eyes on the door. At any moment, over the rain and wind raging outside, they could hear footfalls. The sounds of the same creaking boards that woke Aeson initially. Their ears wait eagerly, terrified for the consequences should they not hear a vampire approaching. Neither of the two men are experts on the undead beings. The random questions that came to mind hardly seemed the sort of urgency to wake Nila for, or Branan, should he happen to have read about vampires years before, and still have that knowledge retained. Some questions being answered may have put them at ease, though. Vampires could probably be outside in the rain. If not, Nila would likely have mentioned it if they are fairly safe during storms. Whether vampires could climb is another hypothetical the two men discussed throughout their watch. They decide that vampires likely could only climb as well as other humanoids. It only comes up because they were on the second floor of a tavern where there are windows which should grant access the same as a door. After about an hour, the storm dies down. The silence in the middle of nowhere with no storms or voices becomes deafening for the two men. Conversation about vampire swimming capabilities is interrupted by a strange sound.
It sounds like wood being sawed.
Like a carpenter would do.
Not quite.
The two listen closely to the sound. It's not a steady rhythm as sawing would be for most woodworking. It's not occasional like chopping firewood could prove to be. It's more erratic than that. The more they hear it, the louder the noise becomes. The cutting wood noise soon goes away.
That was odd. Where did the sound originate?
I'm not sure.
A new sound replaces it. It's a strange, heavy pitter-patter.
I have no idea what that would have been.
Aeson concentrates on the sound. Just when he thinks that he could place what it reminds him of, it stops.
Strange. It stopped.
That is strange. Oh well, it is probably almost done.
The two men freeze when a new sound rings out through the air. A moment later, realizing what it was, they turn around and stare at the pitch-colored sky. Standing on the bed where they had been was an ashen humanoid. Branan and Nila wait to the sound of glass shattering.
Stay behind me, Aeson.
I was already planning to.
Lucas pales when he sees the shadowed figures of several more undead pouring into the window. Nila quickly scrambles to Lucas's side.
How did they?
I don't know.
If you see vampires crawling in from the roof, then you officially know as much as we do.
What? At this time of morning?
Branan sits upright. He turns toward the window.
It's almost dawn. So gust them outside or something.
Growth and expansion are your greatest gifts.
Lucas conjures a torrent of wind and knocks the vampires out the window. As Branan predicted, the dark of night gives way to the first light of the morning. Loud shrieks, and then the sound of flames igniting then follow.
Thank Mara that's been taken care of.
That was incredibly impeccable timing.
Yeah, let's get out of here before we fall asleep and wake up as their next breakfast.
Aeson begins collecting his belongings.
Calm down. Even if there are vampires somehow alive in the wilderness, our weapons still have Mara's blessing. We'll be fine.
And besides, it's morning now, so there won't be any around for quite some time. We don't have to rush immediately, though I do agree that waiting probably wouldn't be very smart.
So, let's gather our possessions. We'll find some trading caravan or something to obtain food in the next few hours.
We can plan what we're doing when we're walking out of this vampire nest.
We're coming.
Aeson and Branan begin moving the items they used to barricade the door. Nila and Lucas quickly collect their belongings. The four then hurry out of the tavern and into the daylight. Nila looks down at the mud they were now walking through. She frowns as she looks at the ground in every direction.
That is...
What's the matter, Nila?
Look at the ground. At all these footprints in the mud. There are scores of sets.
Branan, Aeson, and Lucas look down around their feet.
It rained last night. These are all...
This town is haunted by the ghosts of all the people those vampires killed. That's all.
Aeson continues walking slowly. He refuses to acknowledge the footprints any longer.
How I envy him.
We should try to put this out of mind until we find a Mara church with more clerics equipped to handle this situation.
Right. Luke, you have this place marked on your map, right? So we can point them in the right direction?
I was going to revise the map to make it more accurate, but that would leave me vulnerable to vampires in the open, depending upon how long that took. But this town is on maps.
We'll have to find a temple first. We know this town's location. We know what happened. But for now, let's get away from this place.
I'm not about to argue with that plan.
Lucas, Nila, and Branan follow Aeson into the nearby forest.